I'm joined here today by the one, the only, of course, talking about Felicia Spencer, set to fight Danyelle Wolf at a UFC event coming up in May. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to start my camp for my next fight too.
Of course, and it is still early. Like, well, what's the process kind of look like as you're preparing for this fight? Like, are you at that point where it's more mental preparation, or have you started sort of figuring out your training camp?
A little bit of figuring out training, but I've been doing really good training the last, months. I've been in the gym doing really good work and just getting better. So I'm gonna definitely, add a little bit to it, but I'm also really big on not overtraining. I've put in the time, I've put in the reps, I've put in the hours of, hard training, and so there'll be a peak where it gets a little more intense, and then it'll taper back down again, before the fight, so that I feel good and ready. Last thing you want to do is overtrain, and that's a lesson that you just have to learn. After overtraining. So I think I'm ready to feel good in the octagon.
And so we haven't seen you in what feels like forever. I believe last time we saw you was in June. And just to make it seem like it's even longer, you last fought at UFC 250. We're about to hit UFC 260. Just to make it sound even crazier, what's been going on during this time off?
I definitely wanted to take a little bit of time. I wanted really like 6 months off to let my body recover. My last fight, I definitely had a long, drawn out fight where I did take a lot of damage. So I wanted to, just be on the safe side with recovery. I didn't expect for it to take an additional almost 5 or 6 more months, but that's just the way it played out. I know my division's not the deepest, and it's hard to sometimes come by opponents. So, I guess Danielle was ready, and they offered me to Danielle, and how could I decline? It's a good matchup. It's interesting. It's something a little different. A lot of people have lots of opinions about it, but yeah, things have been going really good though with training and just living. And you can hear my dog out here now. I'm trying to spend some time with my dog before he drives me up the wall. So.
I mean, you're in an extremely weird division, right? Like, there's no ranking. You go on the website, you have a picture of the champion, and then I guess she just fights whoever feels like showing up that night. It's a very weird division. Does that add extra stress kind of for you, knowing that you have this weird division that's sort of in limbo a little bit sometimes?
I don't really stress about it, to be honest. I know, I know the position I'm in. I know the division landscape. I really have gotten really good about not stressing about things that I can't control. So all I can do is control my performance, and hope that they keep things around and build the division a little bit. But if they don't, if they don't want to, that's on them. It's not really anything I can control. So.
So what happens to you? Because you mentioned it a little bit. If they do decide to scrap the division, like, have you thought about that at all? Like, is this a question of you either change weight classes or you change promotions, right? Like, that puts you kind of in a tough spot, either way.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's crossed my mind. It's been brought up for a couple of years, even coming into the UFC. So it's just something that I'll have to decide when I get to that point. I don't foresee changing weight class. So if they don't want the featherweight division, they don't want Felicia Spencer. Kind of is how I'm feeling. So we'll just have to take it as it comes and make decisions as the problems arise.
It's a very tough position to put yourself in, but so far you do have a fight, right? There is a semblance of a division. Before we get to the fight and all that stuff, because there's a ton of stuff to talk about, like you mentioned, people have their opinions. But I have to ask you this: we saw Amanda Nunes fight Megan Spencer. Megan Spencer, I'm getting confused now. Anderson. You fought both women. What did you think when you watched that fight? Like, what did you come away thinking after that one?
It was I was really thinking that I always root for underdogs, and I know that there's always a chance. Being an underdog in a lot of my fights, I've always gone in fully confident in my ability, even if I didn't come out on top. So I was hoping that there was something that would happen that would make the division interesting. Kind of make it seem a little more competitive. But I also, when I saw what happened, I was like, yeah, Amanda hits really hard and really throws you off your game sometimes, and that's just the way it pans out sometimes. So good for Amanda. She's doing great things. I fully respect her. I think she's an amazing person. And there was some interviews I was doing, kind of rooting for Megan, rooting for the underdog, but just more self-serving than anything. So it is what it is. I mean, Amanda's the champion for a reason, and we're all supposed to figure out how to beat her. So on to the next one.
You mentioned her power a little bit, and we have people like Joe Rogan that love saying stuff like, she's knocking out, or Dana White. Somebody said she's knocking out men in training and stuff. Things always get weird. What did you think of her power? Like, you faced it firsthand. Like, what is it from the people watching on the outside? Like, what do you kind of make of her power?
It is something different. You don't feel that, and you certainly don't feel that in training. I mean, at least where I train, we're not trying to actually hit each other 100% ever. So, just the style of training that we do nowadays. But yeah, even in fighting, it's definitely something that was a little unique to overcome and to try to keep your, just your head on straight. Just try to keep your game plan in mind and have still be able to do what you want to do with confidence. It's tough to do that sometimes, especially when you get hit with some clean shots. So I think we saw that with Megan, that she got hit really hard, and it was tough to make a good decision and have confidence doing it. So it's just the way it plays out sometimes. You're not really I guess ready for things you haven't felt, or even if you think you're ready, sometimes it's just in the moment things happen. So
So let's talk about your fight a little bit. Obviously, you're taking on Danyelle Wolf. Like you mentioned, everybody has something to say about this fight because I mean, it is a little bit of a weird booking. What was your initial reaction when like you found out this was the next opponent? Like, I'm sure you knew it was coming, considering you can sort of count on your hands how many people are in the division. But what was your reaction when you got word like this person was next?
just kind of business. It made sense, like you said, it was something on the horizon. I kind of thought part of they might find someone else for Danielle and someone else for me, and then winners fight or kind of build her up a little bit. Um, but it's people have said obviously her record in MMA is 1-0, and she's making her pro debut fighting someone who just fought for the title. So there's a lot of opinions about that, but it's not the first time that a boxer has transitioned to MMA with a heavy boxing record and then jumped straight to the UFC. I mean, James Toney and Randy Couture was the first one that came to mind back in the day, and that was kind of in a time in the UFC when the divisions weren't super developed and in a weight class that had needed a little excitement. And I feel like the same thing is happening with the featherweight division. It's not fully developed. It needs a little excitement. So they're doing something a little weird, a little different, and it's drawing attention, and good or bad, it's still attention. So um, she's still an experienced combat sport athlete, and I don't underestimate her focus over the last, I'm sure, 3 or 4 years at least, into MMA training. That's not nothing.
So what did your social media look like when this got announced? Because it sounds like I'm sure a lot of people must have had a lot of stuff to say about this one, especially tagging you, getting all up in your messages and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was kind of strange because it wasn't announced by by the UFC. It was kind of just came out kind of
Yeah.
randomly, and my phone did blow up that evening with tags and stuff like that. And I don't think I actually even posted anything myself because I was like, well, the UFC hasn't technically announced it. I'm always like, I don't want to step on any toes. But it's I don't dive too deep into comments anymore. It's nothing really good comes from that anyway. But I think people are excited to see a featherweight fight. A lot of people are fans of Danielle's, or a lot of people are fans of mine. A lot of people just want to see a fight. And you know obviously there's some people that are really hanging on the record and just calling the division a joke, that kind of thing. But it's my job to go in May, on May 22nd, and have an exciting performance. And that's what it's really all about in this in this sport. It's a spectator sport. Sometimes things are strange with matchmaking, but it's certainly not the first time that it's been a weird matchmaking process. So
So what do you do in preparation for an opponent like this? Because normally, there's a lot of people, some of them watch more tape than others, but in this one, I think you have like one MMA fight to watch and then a bunch of boxing stuff. Like, how do you prepare sort of from that perspective?
it's I let my coaches do the grunt of the watching and planning, and I get curious too and I watch a little bit. But it's kind of not easy because you think her game plan is just to box, but obviously she's been working on different things and preparing to go against a mixed martial artist, and I'm sure, considering herself a mixed martial artist now, she has some new tools that she's ready to show. I'm sure she's anxious to show some different things. So for me, a lot of it is just being ready for her range. She's a really tall opponent, which I have a history of doing pretty well against tall opponents. So I'm excited for those advantages that come in when you're kind of a grappler base fighting someone a little taller. It's kind of an advantage to be lower to the ground. But either way, I'm excited to just show. I'm excited to put together things in a fight that I haven't really been successful putting together. As far as starting a fight strong, just being showing that I'm a complete mixed martial artist, that I'm not just a grappler. Sorry if I'm not sure if you can hear the plane over me, but we're in busy Orlando. There's lots of noise here, but yeah, I'm just excited to just to go out there and just do my thing and not worry too much about what's coming at me, and just do what I'm good at. So that's kind of the game plan.
And so, as I end these things, I always like to ask how you see yourself getting your hand raised. But if we listen carefully to the interview, you mentioned the James Toney and Randy Couture fight. Is it safe to say we're going to see you fly across the octagon, get the ankle pick, finish an arm triangle choke in this one? Like, was that a little bit of foreshadowing?
There's a really good chance that it'll end up on the ground. I never, over the last couple of training camps, I think patience has really been something that something to work on and to understand, like, how that can work in your favor. So I'm not going to run in and just do something crazy probably in the very first moment of the fight, but you can expect that the fight's going to hit the mat at some point, and there's a pretty good chance that my reps of you know uh, multiple submissions could show, and or ground and pound. I kind of like that finish too. So I can definitely expect to finish this fight on the ground. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Lots of options there. Thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it, especially this early. Like you haven't, I'm sure you haven't even had time to watch tape or anything yet on this opponent, but we look forward to this fight. It's going to be a good one.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.